Aloha. Today I have got some 5 or 6 day fermented cassava here. So just peel it, cut it up, soak it in water. That's all. And it's supposed to give it more character, help break it down, and help reduce the toxicity. But there are still the core threads in here that travel down the inside of a cassava. So don't just throw this in a frying pan and turn it into home fries. I think you'd be spitting out a lot of these thready fibers that are in the center of it. But there's a lot of starch in here, so I'm going to be running it through my little mill, one piece at a time here. It's just an old-fashioned, basically, cheese grater, but it's a pretty small grate. And I'm going to fill the bowls, transfer to my straining cloth, and then squeeze those in small batches so that you can get a good squeeze. It seems to be pretty important to rinse this at least once and squeeze all the liquid out, because you're going to be making a bread from it with what's left over, and then letting the starch settle out, decanting the water, and then having that fermented tapioca starch as a byproduct. Okay, so I have about one of those bowls worth. Pour enough water on to be able to get that water to come up to the surface pretty easy. Just enough to wet it thoroughly. And then I'm going to wring it out and drop it in the bowl. So I got another bowl's worth. Going to add that to the last water, and this time I'm going to add a little bit more. It really doesn't matter how much water you add, because you're going to be pouring it all off later, so a little more is better than too little. And then, just like the last one, still got the squeeze mark in it. Just wring them out, get every drop out. Alright, and another. Have to admit, the threads in this are a little tough on this little grinder. There's got to be a better way of doing it. We're probably down to just one more batch now. And I saw once before where they cracked these open lengthwise and just cut the threading out of the center. I probably would do that next time, just for ease, and to reduce some of what's going to make it into the final product. But kind of similar to poi, it's got its own funky smell. I would say it's somewhere between buttermilk and sauerkraut. But for something otherwise that would otherwise be bland to the taste, this is definitely giving it some character, to say the least. There we got the dry pieces. Are all hard, and you're going to want to break all these up, get it kind of fluffed out, because when I go to put them on the frying pan, you sort of just throw down fluffy little bits and pack it into a pancake. And if this is all the water, it's going to sit for about an hour now. Let that starch fall out, make a cake. I'll pour the top off and save your starch cake. And I didn't use really much oil last time. I used a little bit to get it going, but I think for the most part you do these pretty dry, kind of like a pancake. Alright, so I added a little baking powder. I've seen baking soda on the things, but there's some of that in there, and then sea salt. And broke it all up, so it's nice and fluffy now. And you find some of the crud, like the threads and maybe pieces that didn't process all the way. I want those chunks in there, because even though this is the first cake, see, they start to, you want it nice crumbly, so you can pack out a pancake, bring in the sides and give it some form, and then you'll start to see the color change happening as the starch is set and the steam starts to come up through, and then it's ready to flip, and it'll hold together. Like, you kind of expect this stuff to fall apart as a bread, like a cornmeal might, but no, there's so much starch in it, even after doing that wash, that it's totally binding together. Okay, that one's pretty much done. The rest of those guys, I'm just grabbing about what my hand can hold, plop it down in the middle as crumble, and then break up all your little balls and kind of push it out to the extreme. You don't want to be too thin, but there's no need to be too thick either. So now it's just kind of a loose mess. I take my spatula and press all this down. You can see a hard piece right there. And then I'm going to just pull in my edges. Like that. And then come back through and press it all down again. You can really press this, unlike a regular bread. You can already start to see some of the color coming through from the steam cooking the starch in the cake. And it's already achieved pliability. So in other words, you could probably flip it right now without it breaking. But I'm going to go ahead and let that steam until it starts to get more brown on the end like these guys. And then give it a single flip, let it brown on the other side, and it's done. On to the next. You can see that starch has changed on the light. And just enough brown. Pan's fully hot. And then your water heaters are not ready to decant. Let's see. I'm going to wait a little bit more. Let that starch cake really set. Whoa, look at that. Thick. It's probably almost a ½ inch thick. Unreal. Okay, I wanted to just show how much oobleck we got. How deep of a pancake this is. Whoa, yeah. Holy cow, yeah. That was like a ½ inch of starch. A nice oobleck starch from that batch of cassava. That's a lot of starch. It's like a whole jar's worth of dry starch when it's said and done. Try and make some noodles maybe, or figure out the tapioca pearls, or make some fufu. I guess. Okay, so that's pretty much that. I'm gonna turn this one off, and I got my pile of them. And honestly, we've been eating them kind of like hash browns with ketchup. Really good. They're very, very pliable. That's probably the coolest thing about these, is they're pliable. You can fold them, like one Jamaican brother said. If you can fold them, you got it. And yeah, great alternative. It's kind of like a dense bread, like a potato bread, chewy, but you know, very fulfilling. And I could see how if you didn't have flour, this would be a very nice alternative. It would be at least something kind of close to bread. Anyway, give them a shot. Aloha.